Welcome to Self-Perfected.
Hey,
Welcome to the Self-Perfected podcast. Dude, you know what's so funny? I think I was putting like the Self-Perfected episode playlist into some playlist of mine, and it started playing the first one, and I was like, "Hey everybody, my name's Cameron, and welcome." Or like, it's like, "Hey everybody, welcome to the Self-Perfected podcast. We're really excited to be here, and my name's Cameron, along with my 4 co-hosts." And I'll just go in order. It's just like, man, I was like, "What is that? Like, what is that?" I'm like, "That's the first episode of the podcast." It's so awesome.
we get more formal over time if you hadn't realized.
Yes,
More
more
formal.
formal for sure.
That
episode has the most views. Did you guys know that?
Makes sense.
The origins.
Yeah, because people don't make it through past the
They're like, "What is this shit?"
They get to the on God one, which is the 4th one, and they're like, "Fuck this shit."
They were also too long. They were also really long.
Yeah,
like-
but the Origins one is really long, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like 3
it is.
hours.
People are about it. People are about it. Origins is a good name.
Looked
Let's
at
just call
everything.
this one Origins. too.
Origins.
Origins too.
And let's call the next one Origins too.
Let's just call it Oranges. It kind of sounds like Origins.
You're right. Maybe that will get them.
So, because most people can't read and they probably have dyslexia. So
Yes.
there
So
we
do
go.
one anyways.
But see, look at all the stuff that's happened in the world since we started. Right. This is
Jeez.
like the best time ever to host a podcast.
Wow.
There's just so much shit to talk about. Like Trudeau.
We got to have a best of podcast that goes back and be like, "Hey, these are all the predictions that we nailed." And like,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that would actually be cool.
I-
The top
Can't-
10 predictions we got right.
Cam
You're gonna find our most
definitely.
avid listeners who can tell us which episodes we say what.
Yeah, because we're not gonna do that.
It's funny though. I think I can contribute to this because I have been listening to the podcast from the beginning. I'm on like 12 now, I think.
Wait,
And
what?
I went back. I'm serious. I went back, and Cam
Oh.
actually perfectly predicted. I mean, there's a lot of things, but like one of them was like, "Oh yeah, with COVID, like next thing you know, virtual reality is just gonna come out next." And like, lo and behold, look
And that
at
was before like it
That-
was talked
This was,
about.
I think it was like episode 9 or something. You said that, yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome. That's pretty cool.
Ding, 1 point for Cameron.
That was like 2020, right? That was like
Yeah.
halfway through 2020.
I hadn't even joined
So-
Self-Perfected at that point.
Wow. Like
What?
the metaverse started getting talked about at the end of last year. And this
Mhm.
was a whole year before that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So, it's epic.
you wouldn't know it if you talked to me one-on-one, but I'm actually a genius. I'm really good at just like holding back. Don't let other people talk.
Can you tell by all of his books that are behind him?
Yeah,
He's a lot. He's very well read.
that's how I know the future because I read the books.
Oh. And you know that
Hey,
history repeats itself, huh?
it's funny we were talking about we won't have things to run out of talking about because like I was just thinking about that earlier today. I heard this thing today that it was something I was watching like Gavin McInnes or something, and there was some left-wing journalist activist person who was talking about the protests or whatever, the Canadian protests, and and she said the reason why they're honking, the reason why it's honk honk is because it's HH, which stands for Heil Hitler.
No.
What?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Like
That-
imagine the
that-
person though who actually reads that and it's like, oh shit, and like they're like, yeah, this is like it's a racist dog whistle. I'm like, okay.
Oh my God.
That is
Yeah.
such a reach.
that was that a lady who wrote that?
Hilarious.
Yeah, because that also
That's
connects
the
to the
one,
meme
but-
where it's like the clown world and it's like honk honk, you know,
Oh
like
my
everything's like a
God.
clown world.
Oh,
And
That,
apparently
that lady's actually my hero. That
You know-
journalist who wrote that is my hero.
the thing is, I think those people actually believe that the truckers are all racist. Like they actually believe that.
Yeah.
But how can they not? Like they've redefined racism to mean everything. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
Hey,
they
they
trap
should
themselves in
listen
this like
our other-
fantasy
you
world.
should listen to our other podcast episode, the one that's called "Everyone Is Racist."
Oh, they'll love that.
They would definitely understand.
If you want
It's
to
like
hear
not even-
four,
It's
if you want to hear
not
four woke guys talk about
even-
racism, remember that?
guys. Yeah.
Yeah,
Quote,
I didn't see if that guy commented back. I frankly have 1,000 other things I would rather do, but it's
Yeah.
fun.
One of my rare responses to the comments.
It's like not even scary anymore to be called racist. I know, like publicly maybe, but we were talking about this at the clubhouse that we had yesterday. That Drake asked a really good question. He was like, "What is why will focusing only on the positive always result in a disaster?" And one of the things that were mentioned there was in terms of being like, you have to confront the negative because this entire system is trying to make you feel negative because you're looking for the positive and the whole system is here to make you feel negative. So unless you solve the negative inside of you and make it so that nobody can make you feel negative, somebody will call you a racist and you'll shut down. Somebody will call you a bigot and you'll be like, oh, no, I'm not a bigot. Like, I'll join whatever, I'll do whatever you say. So like, that's like a gun being pointed to your head is like being called a racist. If that's you, then you're weak. Right. And so it's really looking at that process of how is it that you're working through your negative? If you're not walking this process on a daily basis, you're never going to do anything with your life because things aren't getting easier. We're more connected, so it's easier to reach people, but you're now more afraid than ever to reach people, to post something on Facebook, to make a video, et cetera, et cetera. If you're not overcoming that fear, it's only going to get worse. This is like the growing or dying thing. It's like you will 100% guaranteed regress until you're down to just be in VR world. Like that's the whole point here, is to make you feel like there's no point of going out of this sandbox because you're going to get in trouble. Because you need somebody who's giving you the rules, because the rules are changing so much. You need it to just be automatically filtered in the metaverse. Because when you go try to express yourself in reality, it's just like, oh man, I'm getting slapped with all these words that make me feel bad, right? And it's like, because what's the consequence if you're a racist now? You lose your job and some crazy shit, right? Like, why are they arresting truckers? What's the reason?
Because they said honk honk.
Well, I was talking to Katie about this morning, and every time we see something about the Canadian trucker protests, we just laugh. Because, and people are going to get so upset about it, but it's like, let me ask you guys a question. And I'm just speaking about myself. How many times did you see me saying protesting is not the solution?
A lot.
Right. So I talked
fact,
a lot
you
of
did
shit
a whole
about the
you did a whole
Every
protest
time there
about
was
it.
a protest.
right. So I talked a lot of shit about the Black Lives
Cameron's
Matter
protesting
protests,
with
right?
a picket sign saying
Cameron's
protesting is not the
protesting the
solution.
protesters.
Yeah.
I talked a lot of shit about the Black Lives Matter protests,
Yep.
and then I said protesting doesn't solve anything. And
Yep.
did you see me support the Canadian one?
No.
Of course
No.
not.
Why? Because it's not a solution. Doesn't matter if they're right. Problem is, you're still arguing about opinions because all those people believe in God. All those people think we should just go back to the way things were. I'm like, what's funny about it to me is Canadians just realize they live in a communist dictatorship. Like, I want you to imagine for a moment, there was a protest in China and the protesters were like, guys, the government is shutting down our protest and they're not letting us protest. And they're saying it's illegal. And they're saying all this propaganda about us. Wouldn't you be like, yeah, dude, you live in China. You live in a fucking communist dictatorship. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
That's how Canadians are right now. They're like, can you believe this, buddy? This Canadian, this is an outrage. And you're like, dude, you live in a fucking communist dictatorship.
I'm sorry. But no, I didn't know that.
Prime Minister Trudeau has to go. Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry to say it. But it's like,
That's
you see what I'm saying,
how
though?
me and Christine sound. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Stop it.
no, that's not how you guys sound, but
Because we live in America.
but you allow it. No, but
it definitely has accelerated the tyranny, dictatorship, communist like control of the government. I think the protest has actually.
no, you're just seeing it now. If you were to go back and look at all the laws that have been passed in Canada and all the different stuff and everything that's happened there, the only reason why you're seeing it now is because that people are resisting. It was there the whole time. There's nobody was resisting it. Look, for the last 2 fucking years, no one did anything about the vaccine mandates, anything, the lockdowns, the masks, all that stuff.
That's a good point.
But look at the way people responded in Canada. So the reality is that's what we're all heading towards.
Yeah.
Right. So why be outraged about it? Like, can you believe this? They said that the Black Lives Matter were mostly peaceful, and now they're defaming and disparaging our protests. I'm like, yeah, no shit, because you're going against what the system wants. Like, no kidding. Like, you just realized that the system is not your friend. And like, think about this, like someone protesting. What did you think was going to happen? What did you think the result was going to be? Was the result going to be Justin Trudeau's like, you know, I realized that so many of these fringe minority don't want me here, so I'm going to step down and let one of them take over the government. Sorry for wasting your time.
Emphasis
Like,
on
is
the
that what was
sorry.
going to happen? Like, can you imagine the president of the United States doing that? Or they're just like, and that's what's happening here too. Same thing, where they're just like, I don't give a fuck what you think.
They're like, you know, I had to go through a lot of shit and do a lot of crazy shit to even get in this position, but one protest is enough to get me.
Yeah.
out of here.
Or maybe these people thought that, okay, we protest enough, now they stop doing these mandates, right? The vaccine and the mask mandates, right? It's like, what the fuck is that gonna actually do?
But you're still a slave.
Exactly.
Like, you still go to your job. You still, you know.
Exactly. And all these kids have this trauma now of wearing masks during their formative years. Like, there's still infinite problems, and people just think, oh, because we got this one little tiny victory. Like for here, I noticed like a lot of major cities stopped the vaccine passports and mandates. Like Washington, D.C. stopped it. Boston stopped it. Here in Minneapolis, they stopped it. Minneapolis still has the retarded mask mandate, but whatever. But it's like, you can see it kind of easing up for right now. And it's going to be very interesting to then see. It's because it's like a chess game, right?
What was that video that, I don't know if one of you guys shared it or I watched it by myself, of it's like you clamp down on people and then you give them a little win and then they're like, we're good. Maybe it was
Right.
Benjamin Owen or Owen Benjamin or something. And then he's like, and then
Is this
Huh?
like the mass formation stuff, or?
I don't know.
It might
I
be.
don't,
It
I don't
sounds
know
like the
the
Owen
rules yet.
Benjamin thing too, though, because then you clamp even harder, and that's just
Exactly.
the game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because now we've all realized, holy shit, for 2 years we're all accepting that, okay, there can be this pandemic emergency state thing, and it's like, oh yes, wow, I can now go outside without wearing a mask. Yay, thank you, government. Of course, what's the next fucking thing?
But you see how also it's the
Carpenter.
problem reaction solution point,
Hmm.
because
Exactly.
you have these truckers and everybody going and protesting, and then now what does the government do? Everyone thinks that's the solution, right? But literally the government's like, now we're going to declare an emergency act and we can do whatever the fuck we want. We can freeze bank accounts, which now sets into precedent that they can do shit like that.
Right.
So what are they
They
going to
just
do
sped up
whenever
the whole-
you're like using too much energy in your house? They're like, oh, you're going against the Canadian fucking climate conservation act or whatever, and we're going to shut down your bank account so you can't buy more fucking milk this month or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an
Because
emergency.
the Amazon driver that is required to deliver your groceries, or Instacart driver that's required to deliver your groceries, that exceeds your CO2 output allowance.
Oh, this is gonna be the perfect merger of corporate and government. So you won't tell the difference. So like, instead of like a Mountie trampling somebody, it'll just be your Amazon driver will just run you over.
Like, oh,
Right.
that's the Amazon.
You ordered
Oh,
too many
shit.
boxes. You're like, oh no, hey, this one came too late. They're like, are you protesting? Are you seriously protesting right now? And they just like run you over.
So for those of you who don't know, apparently a lady got like trampled by a police officer.
That police horse.
A horse.
Horse.
It was an officer. Yeah, the officer was like, which is so sad. I know we shouldn't laugh about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty fucked.
Yeah, we shouldn't laugh because no one gives a shit about all the children that have been totally fucked by these mask mandates.
It's such
And
a
all they
great
care
point.
about is freedom, which is like, what is freedom? Freedom to do what? You're not free. Quit pretending. This Canadian flag represents freedom. Like, how has it ever represented freedom? It's red and white. Do you know what else is red and white? The fucking communist Chinese flag. I know it's yellow, but I'm just saying it has to be yellow.
Shade of white.
There's
So-
no blue. That's the color of freedom. We all know red, white, blue. That's freedom. Okay. If you don't have the blue, you don't have the freedom. All right.
I thought that was the
Know
color of
that.
racism. What the hell is going on?
Oh
Is the
yeah,
US
wait,
flag
blue.
racist or not?
Oh shit, yeah, blue.
I was seeing this lady's comment on it was because you know how the what is it called? Project Veritas. That's what it's called. You know how they put out a video of one of the CEOs of, I forget which.
Moderna or Pfizer, one of them.
Yeah,
The
The
FDA.
FDA.
It was some executive director of the FDA.
FDA.
That's it. One of the executive directors of the FDA saying basically, how are they not going to approve the vaccines for toddlers, for infants? They're totally going to do it. And
Of course. How many vaccines do infants have to get now or supposed to? Anyways?
and that's what he's saying. He's like, also, I don't agree with it, but it's money. We're just going to keep doing it every year after year. And
It's like, no shit.
they asked him, like, what do you mean you don't agree? And he's just speaking candidly because he thinks he's going on a date or whatever. He's
That's
like,
how they get these guys. They're like,
it's
going
so
on a date.
good.
It's pretty
How do
smart.
they all
So
fall
that's
for it?
I was wondering. It's like a hot woman on a date with him.
Yeah,
It's like I'd say she's like a 7.5.
I imagine. From
Actually,
her
I
voice,
don't know. I'm
that's
just
what I
joking.
imagine.
But they probably
Not
drink a little
enough.
bit too, right? So, and they're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna bang this chick, so like I gotta just like answer her
Do
question.
you think they end up fucking?
Probably not.
I think he ends
Oh,
up fucking everyone over.
I think he ends
He ends up getting
fucked.
fucked in some
I
way.
think
Yeah,
there it is.
exactly.
Yeah, he gets
Yeah.
fucked.
He gets fucked for sure.
So wait. What did he? What was the response to that when he said like I don't agree with it?
And she asked him, what do you mean you don't agree? He's like, well, they're not going through any of the testing, actually. Because this is an emergency use, you don't actually have to have the efficacy for it to work like we normally would. Like, there's some testing, but it's not real. There's no assurance going on here. Like, you can't provide a surety to the parents because, I mean, we didn't really do anything, but it's going to get approved. So, that's just how it goes. And someone was making this comment of like, since when do we start sacrificing children for the elderly?
Dude, like the 1%.
Since when do we start, like,
for
testing?
fucking ever?
Exactly. But now it's coming to light and still people are still doing it. It's like,
That's what Disney is.
mm,
I would never show my kids that trash just so they can make money. Like, I want you to imagine, like, what do you think a football locker room's like?
smelly.
Wait, we're talking American football, other football.
Or football?
Football.
Good question.
We
let me
live
give
in
let me give a different example. Okay, what do you think like the discussion with the people at the bar after work at Exxon is like,
Mm.
Mhm.
or some like weapons company or something?
like
Yeah.
at the bar afterwards, like happy.
I'm just
hour
saying,
time?
like, what do you think they're talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. Stuff like that. Like,
Okay,
oh man.
what do you think the people who write shows for Disney and cartoons and shit are talking about after work and stuff? Like, do you think they give a shit about your kid?
The world. Like that, right?
Yeah.
Every day after work.
Like,
Drake's
you
trying
see
to
what I
get
mean?
casted
Like,
right
do you
now.
think they
Yeah.
care?
They don't give a fuck.
And they're all fucked up mentally. They're just
There's
people.
probably like a few who care because in childhood they got programmed to want to be like, "Ooh, I'm a good person," and then they're like, "I'm at Disney. I'm helping."
I have a few friends
Fucking
that
okay.
worked at Disney. I have quite a few friends that worked at Disney, and one of them, he was a server, and I was asking him about that, like, how it was being a server at Disney, and he was like, "Dude, for whatever reason, parents would have their kids take photos with me as a server." And I'm like, this is your daughter? What are you doing? Like, what?
Dude, they're like in a fucking spell, literally.
Yeah.
It's like magic. Oh, wow.
It literally is. It's like a cult.
is a
Maylat
cult.
and I just went, like, we were gonna maybe eat at a restaurant in one of the Disney like areas, and we were like, we need to get out of here. Like, this is actually insane. Like, every 90% of people are wearing Mickey Mouse ears. Like, everyone is just like hyped up, and you have to wear masks in a lot of these areas. I don't know if they've like removed that since. But, like, it's so weird. Like, and
Dude,
then
that
you
is
see
like
every
the
kid.
epitome of a weak man.
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse ears and a mask.
And you're in Disney, and these kids are like on their tablet watching more Disney, like while they're distracted so that their parents can like eat a little bit of food or something. It's like
Wow.
insane. Also, just wanted to shout out like the 10 people that are watching, and shout out Joel and Margot and Chantal and Owen.
Hey.
Woo!
Why them
Oh.
specifically?
Oh, because I said hello.
Oh.
Hey guys. Owen and Chantal got
Hey.
engaged. Wow.
Hey,
shout out, you
congrats.
guys. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, and Aaliyah, we got here.
What up?
Hey, Andalia and Evan got married,
Another
right?
engaged person. Oh yeah, that's right. Married.
Yeah.
What?
Aw, couples. Yeah.
What?
We're just
Say
shooting
that
out
the other day on the
couples like
call.
crazy.
Which
Yeah.
call?
Yes, Evan and Aaliyah are married. I know.
Well,
Fact check.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm shocked. Guys, this is my real-time reaction of Evan and Aaliyah. Hey,
These are reaction videos by Asif Nasralli.
Let me put
I'm
it this
happy
way.
as hell. Congratulations.
I'm
guys.
very, yeah, I'm happy for them.
All
and I
Evan
know
says
that
is
that
what
was
up.
that was a process. Guys, this is what happens when you come to visit my
There you
house
go.
and
That's
you
good.
get around Katie for about a couple days.
Nah, more
See,
like
it's like-
15 minutes, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then Hulk smash.
Oh, Aaliyah said she actually, before getting into Self-Perfected, wanted to become an animator for Pixar.
Wow.
Wow. I'm glad she's here.
Yes.
She course
See,
corrected.
But then look at it for yourself. Like all the stuff that's going on within you, how is that not unconsciously, subconsciously going to come out in the information? Like, think
Yeah.
about it. Is the Disney animator thinking what would be the best thing to educate children with? Because millions of children are going to watch this movie over and over and over and over and over and over. What should we put in it?
Well, I think in a weird, twisted way, they might, but from their perspective, it's like we got to have them be a hero, and they got to go through adversity, and then
That's
in
best
love.
case scenario. That's really
Yeah,
best
but
case
even
scenario.
if that's their intention, they're still, they don't know what is best.
The animator,
Meaning they're not actually considering it.
exactly, and everything's so divided. Like they have no creative power. You know what I'm saying? It's so this department does the shooting. This
So who's
department does
actually
the-
making the decision about what really
Exactly.
goes into it? Who?
exactly at the top?
Who?
Is Alec Baldwin in the shooting department?
No.
Anyway,
I heard this thing on Tim Pool. I think it was Tim Pool, and they were talking about like how hard it is. Like somebody like had a gun point blank and like missed at somebody, and they were like, "Guys, do you know how fucking hard it is to like shoot somebody even at point blank range? Like you can twist it." And I was like, man, I wish somebody was like, yeah, not everyone's Alec Baldwin.
That's good.
Someone made the joke. I'm like, come on, it's right there.
I know this girl who is a singer, and she wanted to make songs for children and all this other stuff. And her perspective was, you have to have adversity to make a good song, because all the greatest artists, they went through so much pain and struggle. And I was like, wait, but isn't that just because everyone else has gone through pain and struggle, and that's what they're connecting to? Like that's what, like, in other words, what you were saying as the process for, you're going to unconsciously put this into your movie because that's what you're feeling, and that's what you think other people will connect to because they've also gone through pain, but you're not giving them a solution. It's just like, it's the same thing that I've noticed. Drake songs are super popular because it's like, or any popular music, actually, any popular music,
Pop music.
pop music. Yeah, that's what it's called. That's what the
It's
kids are
called
calling
pop
it.
Music.
But all of those songs, they like kind of connect with those points within people that are like, yeah, my girlfriend left me. Oh man, you know, it's like, and then that's what makes
It's like
them
a
popular.
self-pity, dwelling on self-pity.
Getting in the
It's like,
feels.
yeah, exactly. It's
Getting
just
in the
helping you.
feels.
It's like amplifying that feeling inside of you.
Yeah.
This Drake character is preying on individuals who are heartbroken,
Is
and he's taking advantage of them. Oh my god. Oh my god. What a world.
Yeah, I'll tell you a
we
funny
live in.
story real quick. When you're talking about pop music, it made me think of this. Yesterday I was doing some stuff. We're like kind of re-landscaping our backyard fenced in area. And Max comes home with Katie because I was working, and then they left and they came back. And they had gone to get groceries and stuff, and they got some tacos. And Max had a little bag, a little paper bag, and like a to-go cup. And he comes over to me and he's like, Cameron, you want to come and sit and take a break and take a little rest with me? And I was like, okay, what's going on? What do you have there? He goes, I've got a little tasty treat. No, he said a little sweet treat and a lemonade. He's like, actually, it's poppin' pink lemonade, but it's not actually strawberry flavored. It's just regular. It's just called poppin' pink because they want you to buy it. Right. And it was just so funny the way he said all. He's like so
That's
specific with the way he communicates.
amazing.
Right?
That's so funny.
Wow,
He called it
that's
a
so cool.
sweet treat.
The other week when you were saying he doesn't prefer, it was like the word he used. What did he say?
It's not my preference. or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
See, but we were even
That's-
really specific about that.
so cool.
Like we were so specific within how we would communicate with them about stuff like that. Like, I don't prefer onions.
Mhm.
Somebody else would be like, I fucking hate onions. I can't have onions in my food. I fucking hate them. I'm like, okay, sure. But are you going to impulse that onto your child?
yeah.
Because they look up to me in a certain sense. They're looking to me for information. And I'm like, I hate onions. It's like, what do you mean you hate them? Like, you could just be like, look, I don't prefer them. I really strongly dislike them.
Yeah.
But when you make it this emotional, impulsive thing, like you're creating. So we would always explain to the kids, like, hey, if you don't like something, you could just tell us that you don't prefer it. That's fine. Right. And then we would show them it's okay if you have certain preferences. Like Seneca doesn't typically like cheese on her sandwich, but it's not a big deal. It's like if there's cheese, she'll be like, I don't want the cheese on here. Like, oh, we can take it off. So it's always like everything's kind of like more balanced. Right.
Dude,
I know. Nope. I
imagine.
need to start a hashtag for that. No cheese gang. Yeah, we have to polarize people based off as man.
Imagine.
But hold on, but she
Oh.
understands I like cheese, right?
Uh-huh.
So last night I made her a sandwich, Katie made her a sandwich, no cheese. And then later I was making a sandwich for myself, right? And then she was like in the bathtub, and I told them I was gonna go make a sandwich, and then I was gonna come back and sit with them because they have this little game like to play with me in the bathtub, like with those little like animal toys. And I was like, I'll go get my sandwich and come back, and then we can play. And she was like, I'm gonna have some of your sandwich. I was like, you want to have some of my sandwich? I was like, I can make you one. She goes, no, I want to share with you. And I was like, okay, but I like to put cheese on my sandwich. She was like, that's okay. You see what I mean? So she wouldn't want cheese on hers, but she's like, but I want to share with you, so it's fine. I'll have the cheese on. It's not a big deal.
Oh, that's cool.
You see, like,
That's
see how
awesome.
it's like it's reasonable. Is my point.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, that's really
Can you
cool.
imagine like just having that in our childhoods? How much more just
I know.
stable on so many levels we would be just from like little shit like that, like food preferences, how much that just amplifies into these characters and stuff of like just reacting when you don't like something or when you do like something instead of just being.
Isn't that
No.
how racism works? Like
Mm.
when you're young, think of all the shit people say to you and do, etc., around you. That's going to
Mhm.
develop into a point where you hate these people or you fear these people. It's the
Yeah.
responsibility is at the parent level. Of course, saying that, it's like, what are you just going to tell people? Hey, parents, you need to take responsibility. Like they don't fucking know how. They don't. They are just programs created by their parents and so on.
Mhm. Yeah,
Same thing with the Disney people.
like having a Caribbean parents. I think generally speaking, immigrant parents are like more racist.
Yeah.
But it's just like
they're-
them white people, them black
Them
people,
white people.
them Asian people. It's like doesn't matter who it is. It's like very tribalistic, right? Like low vocabulary. The lower vocabulary you get, the more tribalistic you get.
Dude, the thing is, people who are not white are the most. I mean, not every person, but collectively, they're
No, it's
more
true.
racist. Like racist in the sense of like openly, directly, like it's just what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I would say they're more honest.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
right? Meaning honest, not maybe self-honest, but from an honest perspective of like, people are like this, these ones are like that, and all that.
They're more blatant. That's what it is. It's like,
Yeah, but
more
it's like
direct about it.
the white people side of the equation is just more like the fear of being perceived that way. But also, I think in a lot of sense, they don't look at things that way generally, although some people do. But
It's
it's
really
just less
funny. Me,
blatant.
me and Maylat were talking about this, I think, last week, and I was just mentioning how I'm like, Cameron's like the least racist person I know. I'm like, I'm more racist than he is. Like, I had to like let go of a lot of points, but in terms of, I've seen you interact with so many people just from being at events and living with you basically for like collectively like a month, over time. I'm like, you've always impressed me about how your interaction with somebody just doesn't change based off the individual. Like, that's what it means to be absolute, right? You're not dependent on the variable in front of you. But I was just like, that's so funny, because people would think you're the most racist person because of you not being
You just look
worried
like
about
a
how you're
white
perceived.
supremacist.
What was that, Mitch?
He just looks like a white supremacist.
Exactly. Yeah.
See,
So
that's funny, because like the woke white people, racist, whatever, would say that shows how racist he is, because he's not considering how the way he interacts with people is very white.
I'm
and that's
racist.
harming.
I'm racist because I don't treat people differently according to the color of their skin.
Exactly.
right, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the truth, right?
You should have done.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's so
So
funny.
you're making this really good point of the equation of, wow, people are giving vaccines to children, and wow, that's like really abusive. It's crazy that we would abuse children for profit and sacrifice children for all the elderly. But just really realizing and understanding the equation that's been happening since.
Dude, that's what Christmas is. You're literally sacrificing your child's innocence and turning him into a little monster because you want to feel good.
Yeah.
My dog
Who's
agrees.
that?
The dogs
Eddie is
agree.
not happy.
Eddie's like, that's what I'm talking about.
He's like, preach, Cameron. So it's
So
like,
random.
we don't imagine it like this. This is why it's a battle for the mind, right? Is because, on the if you can't read, if you don't have vocabulary, in other words, if you can't see the unseen, if you can't see the invisible representation of a symbol, you will not understand that Disney is the exact same thing as a vaccine, symbolically. What everyone's reacting to is like, oh, this thing is profit and corporate motivated. They don't have our best interest in mind. It's getting put into our children, and it's going to infect them in a way that keeps them always having to then stick to this schedule.
Yeah, and always being
Are we
limited.
talking about Disney or the
Both.
vaccine?
That's the formula, baby.
The above.
Right? It's like, that's what, when you have a low vocabulary, you have to wait till the problem's like literally punching you in the face, and you're like, wait, I think there's a problem. That's what Cameron's talking about, is like, in terms of Canada being a communist dictatorship for forever. I mean, like literally everything that it's me and Maylat were driving, and we were just laughing at how, everything's about freedom and, America like this, but this country was built on slavery. It's like saying that it was built on slavery implies that slavery is now gone. It's also maintained by slavery, and everyone who is saying that is a slave.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's like, until they get punched in the face with the fact that they're slaves, I don't know how that specifically is going to look. Maybe it's when they can't leave their house because of climate lockdowns.
Or
Maybe then
no,
it'll be like,
no. Well, so yes, on some front, yeah. Or they get punched in the face
By a
by
horse.
one of us, like in a
Of course.
metaphorical. We're
Yes,
like, hey,
Mitch.
you want to actually do some shit about this? Okay. Do you really want to do something? Like, yeah. Okay. Really? Again. Okay. Now I got your attention. Okay.
Mitch is
Here's the
fucking-
plan.
Mitch
Are you
walks
in?
around with boxing gloves. Dude. Really?
No, bare knuckle, bro.
Oh shit.
Sometimes brass knuckles, self-perfected, branded. So when I hit them in the face, they can, at
Says
the very
SB.
least, be like an advertisement for us.
That's really good. That's really good. But that's exactly it. Like, that's what education is. It gets you to see what you can't see. And that's why our responsibility is to educate people. That's the point of this podcast, is to get you to see what you otherwise wouldn't see. That's why Christine's here. That's why Chantal's here, and a bunch of other people. is because of that point. We're here to wake your ass
Keep
up.
the base.
Exactly. Because if we're not, this is something that Bernard would talk about. He's like, look, you walk this process and support yourself through the negative so that people can't make you feel bad if you challenge them. Because when you challenge somebody, they're going to try to make you feel bad for it.
That's the whole point. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Right. So if you support yourself to walk through that, you should go into other people's lives and challenge them. And why? What's the value of that? Is because right now they are denying what is here. People say, oh, that person made a fear inside. They created fear inside of me. No, they didn't. They said, look, this place is on fire. And you're like, oh, fuck, I'm seeing it now. I'm afraid now. The only reason that we're doing this is because we know the solution. And if you're listening to this and you aren't 100% clear on the solution, then you should be participating in the groups. You should be reading the blogs. You should be listening to the audios. You should be reaching out one-on-one to talk to different people. If you're a distributor, talk to the other distributors. If you're not a distributor, become a distributor, right? Because you're not going to figure it out until your starting point is the commitment to actually making a difference. If you don't have that, you're always going to be problem oriented rather than solution oriented, because you're looking for an excuse as to why you don't have to take responsibility, why you don't have to step up. Oh yeah, but you guys haven't figured out everything yet, so I'm not going to join until you do. Great, then this is not for you because you're too weak.
Also, that point about problem versus solution oriented, a person who doesn't have a commitment to supporting the world to become best for all within yourself and without as a system, it's like everything is oh well, why should I change this?
Right.
Like the Disney point. Someone will defend that within themselves, or Christmas or whatever, because they don't have a commitment to any real principles in their life. So everything that's actually an opinion inside them is like, well, why should I change that? But when you are committed and you commit yourself and you start walking this process, then all of those points become obvious barriers. So then there's no more, well, why should I change that? It's like, oh, I need to change that. Mm-hmm. And then like, for example, if Asif talks about Disney and saying what he said, when you have that level of commitment, you're like, hey, that makes a lot of sense. I see that within myself. Yeah. And I can see how that would cause this problem and prevent this. And then you want to change it. It may not be easy, but you see my point? Versus the person who's not committed, it's just like everything is like an affront to their beliefs and their opinions.
Yeah. Like we've said this before about, for example, why Mitchell was able to move quickly is because within him, he had the starting point of like, I want to make a difference in the world. So I would give him he would call me, right? Or Kian or Cameron. And I'll just tell you my experience. I know it's everybody else's experience, but Mitchell would have a question, and it would be like, he went and he faced a challenge or whatever the case may be. And I would give him 1%, and he'd say, that's all I need. I'm going to go fill out the other 99% about why it's going to work, because he was solution oriented. With somebody who's problem oriented, you'll give them the 99%. You'll talk about all the reasons why something makes sense and why it just is obvious, like why you should move forward. But they're going to take the 1% that you haven't figured out yet, or that you didn't explain to them, and they're going to say, and therefore I'm not going to do anything.
That is so well said. I had been facing this over the past week with a couple people that I've been chatting with. It's hilarious now that I see it's so obvious to me. So now, okay, here's the question then. How do we support someone to shift through that if they are still trapped in that problem focused?
What are the consequences to that you see, Mitch?
They will fuck themselves over and everyone else.
Like specifically, like if you
like
if you
specifically
live your life like
that person is going to be a +1 for abuse in the world. Like specifically, they're not going to ever get free. They're going to be a slave. They're going to basically be Agent Smith to everyone around them to get them to stay in the matrix, because we don't have that last 1% figured out. So therefore, I'm justified in my opinion that my bullshit way is the way. So yeah, and I mean, it's like I'm very clear on the point that there's 1% right now that's really influencing how the world is playing out. So we just need that different 1% of us. So I realized we don't need to get the 100% right now. We just need that 1%, just like the same thing, right? When we're solution oriented, you just need the 1% and then we figure out the other 99%. Like that's what we'll do. But I don't like to just give up on people, you know?
You don't have to give up, but
You ever hear that statement of it's when somebody says no, it's really just no right now. It's like at this moment in time, that person's not teachable. But the thing I would communicate to an individual like that, because I dude, that was me for like years. Like Kian would be like, hey man, like we should try something new or whatever the case may be. Even before Technitude, all that, I'd just be like super negative. Right. And it's something that Mela had to walk through. She'd be super negative. Right. But now she sees it like immediately. She's like, oh, I'm just thinking about it wrong. And she'll switch because people can change. The point is, realize this: if you're one of those people who you need all of the answers, and even so, you'll still find an excuse, it's really just because you're afraid. And that's a loser mindset. You're a loser. Regardless of if you're getting support from Mitch or Drake or Cam or whoever, and you're like, they didn't fill out all the points for me. It's not about whoever you were talking to. It's about you being a loser. And your relationship is going to suck. And if you probably don't have a relationship. And if you do, it's not going to be effective. You're never going to get a promotion at the job that you work at. Like you're a loser because of that mindset. And just doing, participating in groups and all that stuff, you have to make a decision within yourself. And I know this because I've walked through it. You have to make a decision within yourself, which is done through a commitment. Like a decision means I'm cutting off all options to be a fucking loser. This is what I'm talking about. Mitch had a solution mindset. This is why Cameron could be a bald-headed tutor coming from South Africa and make a business like this work, because he wasn't going to take I'm a loser as the answer. That's the thing that he's going to resonate is, no, I'm a loser and I'm looking for the reason to not do it. He had no reason to do it, but he had one reason. He just saw it was the best thing that he can do with his life. So he just committed himself to that.
That point you made about when you were observing me talking to people and how I'm the same way, there's an exception to that, which is it's really like I'm two ways. How would you expect a racist to act to somebody based on like that they're racist?
Like they would talk down to someone of a different race, or they would not give them certain opportunities. It would, something
It would
like
already
that.
be
Hostile.
prejudice towards them. Yeah.
Hostile, like kind of standoffish,
Yeah.
like fuck that person, right? That's how I am with people who are the 99%, like you were
Yes.
describing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only time. It's not based on their race, blah, blah, blah. It's based on within you, you are not even willing to listen and hear and consider. You are looking for the excuse out.
Yeah.
So I'm not entertaining that. So it's
That's
like,
the biggest
fuck
point.
you.
That's
So
the biggest
with
point.
the person like that, I can be very rude. I can be very like, abrasive.
Mhm.
But when I'm with somebody who I can see it has potential, and because you can see in the moment who that person is and where they're at, but then you can be very flexible. You can be friendly, like whatever.
Well,
But
and-
with a person who's who's just there to make excuses, really what I look for is like, what's their biggest point of weakness that is holding them back? And that's the point that I point out,
Mhm.
generally speaking. Right?
And-
And it's not
and
about it's not about to make them feel weak.
Mhm.
You see what I mean? Because that's the difference between a bully versus someone who's supporting someone in the negative. A bully is doing it out of a sense of, like within themselves of like they need to feel powerful over the person. Because there's plenty, we all have weaknesses that we could bully each other about.
Mhm.
So it's not about going around and just finding people's weaknesses and making them feel bad. It's about pointing it out in a way they can clearly see this is something that you need to resolve. And if you don't, there's going to be a consequence for you. And sometimes you have to say it in a way where the person is like, well, fuck you. Like, how dare you? But then they're going to remember you later whenever they face the consequence. And then they'll be like, all right, you were the only one telling me.
Mhm. And so the point there is to remember that the point that Cameron was mentioned is that person at that moment in time. It's not that person, period, who's just a loser. It's like what they're accepting in that moment, because there's many, many, many times where Cameron was being abrasive to me because I was being a fucking loser. Where I was asking questions because I was trying to look for some kind of justification so I didn't have to do something. And Cameron could see that. So he'd be like, why are you fucking asking me that? That's stupid. I'd be like, dude, stop being such a dick. Like, you know, all that stuff. Versus I could ask a very similar question, but if it was obvious that I'm like, I just want the answer so I can move forward. It's not just Cameron doesn't answer questions. It's like he's looking to support me where I'm at. Right. And so that's the same thing with other people, is really just looking at the point of, you know, for anybody who's in a position of support or to support people to get TechnoTutor or with TechnoTutor, is like, you're there to show people themselves. And the way you do that is, if they are participating in bullshit, don't participate in their bullshit. Let them know you're participating in bullshit. You don't have to say it like that, but the point is you could even say it more aggressively if you'd like.
Yeah.
The point is the result of, look, what you're accepting right now is worse for you. It's worse for everybody around you. Don't want that shit.
Yeah. There was a really awesome audio that I found. It was a audio from Bernard. He was explaining this idea that you can't fully fail in just one breath. So just take it breath by breath. It's like you have to actively continue to decide to be weak and fail breath after breath to like really fail. And that's what we've been doing our whole lives. But the way to correct it is just go breath by breath and say, okay, how can I accumulate the most responsibility here? How do I not make an excuse and just go to the next level, just practically? And that was really fascinating to me, because it made it so simple of like, we're actively choosing and we've actively automated failure, and like fucking ourselves over type failure.
Yeah.
You know, but in a single breath and then consistently, it's like that is the step by step of changing, as long as you have the tools. If you don't have TechnoTutor, you're not doing your writing and you're not part of this group, you can breathe all you want, but you're still fucked.
There's that's right. There's dimensions of this point, because the 75 to 99.5% of why somebody will be participating in a loser mindset is because their natural learning ability isn't open anymore. They don't think they can change. And physiologically, their brain and body, yes, you are always undergoing neuroplasticity. You're always creating new and pruning old neural pathways. But in regards to the problem areas of your life, in terms of relationships, money, communication, emotional stability, things like that, you're stuck. Physiologically, you're stuck. And that's the significance of using these tools. That's why you need to do TechnoTutor on a consistent basis, is because there is a cumulative effect. There is a compounding effect where, if you think about it, of like, you have one node in a network and you purify or fix or activate that node. And let's say it's connected to 5 other nodes. You've just made 5 new connections. But then you do that for another node, and then that connects to all the other nodes. So one purified node creates 6 new connections. You do that 1,000 times, and then you add one more node. You're just adding one more node creates 1,000 new connections, where, you know, many people are like, oh, I'm having way more aha moments and cognitions and all that stuff. That's a result of your physiology being more integrated or connected. And that is what gets you to perceive more than your limited loser mindset. That's really problem oriented. If you can't see a solution, it's because you lack education. And if you lack education, there's only one way to change it. That's why Mitch is bringing up using TechnoTutor consistently.
Yeah. And like, another just key part, I know it's so basic, I know we all realize this, but my guess is the listeners, I'm sure, don't always see this, is like, look at your approach to TechnoTutor and educating yourself on a everyday basis, just like you eat food, right? You don't just binge eat one day, or maybe you do, but it's not like, oh, let me just binge a ton today and then not do it for the next 2 days. It's like the reason that all of us have had so much success in our lives and our businesses, our relationships, all of that is just because we don't make a fucking excuse to use the thing every single day on both the basics and the specific stuff that we're working through every day. No choice. And voila, guess what happens? Like Asif's saying, it's like your physiology becomes more integrated, but then you also build this compounding effect every single day. And it's like, don't overcomplicate it. Don't try and do a shitload today or whatever. If you want, sure, try it, but do it with the understanding of, okay, I will push myself. I'll experiment with this today. Or maybe there's a really big point you're working through and you have to do like 2 hours of TT. Okay, cool. But then every day, still do the minimum. And that has made all the difference in my life for damn sure.
This is the difference between starting something through instability or starting something through stability. Is like, okay, you haven't used TechnoTutor for a week now and you feel bad and all this stuff. And then you come on a meeting or you listen to this podcast and you get all stimulated, right? Or maybe it's your business, or maybe it's writing, or maybe it's some kind of daily habit where you fell off, you're off the bandwagon, or whatever you want to call it, whatever thoughts are playing in your head. And you listen to this podcast, you come on a meeting and you get motivated. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to start doing it every single day again for 2 hours every single day. And in fact, I'm going to go from no habits to doing TechnoTutor for an hour and a half, writing for an hour, making sure I read Creation's Journey to Life and Heaven's Journey to Life, listen to an Equaf audio, listen to a Jin audio, listen to a Bernard audio every single day, and go to my job and build my business. 100%.
That's going to happen.
And you make a post about saying you're going to do all that.
Yes.
Ooh.
Right.
That's
that's
the ones
like
I know are
real.
like, yep, I'll see you 3 months from now
Yeah.
when you're
exactly.
all fucked up again.
It's a really good, Cameron has always made this point. Walk through your shit first and then share about it.
That's what Bernard said. And it made sense. That's why you don't see me posting negative shit.
Yeah. And
I deal with it myself, and with the support of those that I need.
And even with your new commitments, just support yourself to use self-discipline. Don't make it based off of if people cheer you on or some kind of bullshit like that. Now, it's not to say that you should never post. I don't know, but without getting into the specifics of that, let's just focus on the individual support. That's making a decision based off of instability. Understanding that you should take one step. This is the whole point of the Chief Aim Basics, is stair-stepping your goals, whether it be in money, but also with your personal process. Is like, don't think you're going to go from doing nothing to support yourself to doing everything that you can do to support yourself, because that's actually coming from a starting point of regret and guilt of the time you wasted. And then you're going to make the same mistake. So my point is, to come at it with stability, you should take the motivation that you're getting and put it into a structure. Take the energy and put it into structure, whether it be from this podcast, whether it be from talking to somebody one-on-one, group setting, the self-perfected hangout, the TechnoTutor call, whatever the case may be. And what it looks like to take energy and put it into structure is, if you get hype, if you get motivated, you hear somebody's story, you're like, holy shit, I should be using these tools more. Make a commitment. Stick to that. Build self-trust. And your commitment shouldn't be, if you can't use TechnoTutor for every time you use it for 6 minutes, you fall asleep. You're like, I'm going to use TechnoTutor for an hour every day. Make the rules so that you win. Build consistency. Consistency is not something that you've been inconsistent your entire life. And now because you went on a hangout and you heard Drake say some crazy shit or Mitch say some crazy shit, you're like, oh my God, I need to be using these tools. Therefore, you can now be committed all the time. It's a step-by-step process. You need a history of keeping your agreements. And the way you do that is you start small. Make a commitment. Keep that for a period of time to prove to yourself, oh, I can trust my word. I can trust myself. And if hypothetically you fall off, figure out why you fell off. What was going on support yourself to forgive and let go of that. And then that day, just pick up your commitment. There was many times when I was struggling with my commitment with TechnoTutor and using the tools years ago. And all I did, a big shift for me was when I was talking to Cameron, he's like, okay, well, did you do it today? And I was like, no. He's like, just do it today. And I'm like, but Cameron, I just feel so sad and wimpy and such a blah, blah. He's like, look, man, it's simple. Just start again today. And I remember processing that point and realizing if I just let go of the regret and guilt for breaking my commitment, and I look at why did it happen and just start again today, where I don't have to, but today's Sunday. I might as well just wait till Monday, new week. I start my weeks on Monday. But it's the end of the month. It's February 20th. And I want to be able to do a month straight. So I'm just going to start on March 1st. I'm not going to do it till then. That is all ego. That is all self-sabotage. I'm saying this to bring it to your awareness. If you're listening, start again today, set a commitment and then build on that. Right. That's how you start developing a winner's mindset, through using these tools to reopen your natural learning ability. Because guess what? When you're a child, you feel like you can do anything. When you become an adult, you're like, no, nothing can change. Everything has to stay the way it is. It's the opposite, because of that physiological effect of your natural learning ability. Okay. This is what it means to become like a child again. Support yourself consistently to use TechnoTutor and write through the negative things that get triggered that keep you from keeping your commitments. Simple. Keep it simple, right?
Yeah, but also, like, if you're not clear what you need to do on like a single day, if you don't have like, if you can't put into words, this is what I need to do today, you're pretty fucked. But that's okay, because you have the tools and you have the group. But like, if you can't focus on what you intend to make happen, such as, let's say one of your goals is, I want to grow my business. If you didn't go and talk to 3 people today, start with that. But if you don't know where you're going to find the people, okay, start with that. But it's like, it's so simple. We're just so fucked up from the world. It's like we've automated making excuses and being chaotic. And then we have things like social media, which we frankly rarely shut off from. So it's at like 10 p.m. Like, I've started recently, by like 8 p.m. I'm done on social media, like totally. Like, I won't even open Facebook. I won't even I'll check a text like if I need to, but I'm like actively shutting down. But I've had to build that over time, because for years I would just always on, maybe not right away in the morning, but it's like, that's a recipe for being fucking broke. Or if you really fucking mastered it and you have your business running, okay, sure. But yeah, it just requires a lot of self-honesty in terms of, where is our attention on a moment to moment basis? Is it scattered or is it focused? And then when it is focused, are you focused on the best thing? Right? Because if you want to build your business, but you're listening to Equal for 4 hours a day, yeah.
There's a lot of tools though, and it can be like, I know when I joined, it was like overwhelming how much like stuff to go through. So I had to really like, okay, what's practically like where I'm at now can I do? And then, do bit by bit, so that I could, that power list was so good at the beginning when I started, because it was like, okay, I need to do like my TechnoTutor, self-forgiveness, and then 3 other things so that I win the day. Right.
Mhm.
And then breaking it down like that was super helpful, because you can get totally wrapped up in like, oh, I want to, listen to Jin, listen to Equaf, read the both blogs. Like, it's just information overload. And then even more, and it's funny because it's like kind of when you think about school, like when you first start a course or something, and especially in university, it's like super overwhelming at the beginning, and you have to like break down like how to work through that. And then all of a sudden in 3 months, it's like that course is done. So it's like, that's also a pattern that's just ingrained with you, to like overwhelm yourself and then just like, I'm gonna do the best that I can. And then,
well, what I see is like a necessary like thing or two to realize here is, one, so I agree that, yeah, when you come in and you get told about all these blogs, and then you see how long the blogs are and you realize you can't fucking read, like, it's a lot. But what happens, so one is just make the decision of staying plugged in to the community. So come on every Friday self-perfected call. At a bare minimum, that, and then using TechnoTutor every day, you're gonna fucking figure it out. But then the other piece is then realizing that yes, that's a feeling overwhelmed is just a consequence of us never taking fucking responsibility in our lives. And this is for the first time we're seeing what real responsibility is. So just fucking figure it out. But like I realize that certain people can have a certain capacity for how much they can do. But that's why I'm so particular about encouraging people, like just make that commitment every fucking day, do the TechnoTutor, and every week come on the self-perfected call. Because at a bare minimum, if you're doing that, your natural learning ability is going to be reopening, and you're going to be around like-minded people, and you'll get ideas to keep improving. And you will fucking fail. You will fall on your face. You will have those moments where you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And then you beat yourself up. But it becomes a quicker cycle of until at some point, what I found is in the moment, you can just breathe, forgive yourself, and then immediately apply the correction. When you can do that, you're like, warp speed, the best warp speed, not bullshit operation warp.
So I think there is a place where for some, or really for anybody, where you can kind of get obsessed with something in the beginning and kind of go all in and really do a lot. And I think that's not a problem if you want to do that initially. It's like something new. You want to like dive in and study it all day and everything. But the more important thing, like Mitch is explaining, is there's going to be a point where that's not sustainable. Mm-hmm. And you're not getting anything done. So you just have to be aware of that. So if you can be aware of it and you're like, yeah, but I just really want to study this all day and it's so interesting and I want to get my head around it, go for that. But just realize at a certain point, you're going to have to structure it systematically, and you're still going to have to live in the real physical world, and you're going to have to build your business. If you're a distributor or you have some other business, you're going to have to apply these things, right? So you don't have to make it a dichotomy of like, I can't go in and get obsessed and do all that stuff. Like that's what I did when I came across Destiny. I kind of went all in and like every day, all day, but I wasn't doing anything else. But at a certain point, I had to say, okay, now I have to actually go face this fear. I have to actually go do this thing. And then it becomes a point where you have an hour in the morning or whatever it is, where you focus on your process, meaning like the kind of more systematic structural points, and then you go do things. You're always in your own process at all times anyways. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're actually separating the two. But I do agree with Mitch. Like at a certain point, you have to say like, okay, well now you always have to be checking yourself. Am I avoiding something by doing this? Yeah. So if you're enthusiastic and you want to study and do all that, go for it. But then at a certain point, if someone challenges you and they're like, well, how come you're not actually going and talking to people about your business, whatever it is, then you have to look, well, but I gotta write for 5 hours today. It's like, okay, now you're just avoiding. All right. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at that and just be self-honest about it. All right.
Yeah. And one thing that I realized recently is like, it's kind of like a rule I'm setting for myself, or it's like a bit more of a structure where it's like the minimum per day and then the maximum per day. For example, with TechnoTutor, right? The minimum that I do is 30 minutes and the maximum that I'll do is like hour and a half, because I could easily spend 3 hours a day because I've done it many times on TechnoTutor, but there's like a time and place for that for me in my process. But then there's also like the writing, right? Like I set a minimum and then a maximum for my writing. And I've been doing that then with my business, because some days I'll be like, oh, I can go to these 3 events and then I'll generate all these leads. But it's like, it's like almost a taxing effect on the next day. But I've really had to look at this for myself. So I have had many times where I push myself to the max and I'm like, holy shit, I should not do that again like that. Like that was not sustainable. I was only getting a little bit of sleep. I wasn't eating well. Like that was too fucking much. Okay, cool. Now I know what that feels like. I'm not afraid of it. I still am fucking breathing and I'm here. But it's like setting that, it's almost like a range. So I've just called it like, I'm just like asking myself, like, what is the best range for my activity that I do? Because yeah, part of this process is physical activity. I mean, that's really like almost all of it. Is what are you, well, it's one is who are you in the moment, but then what you do is a reflection of that. So that's been like super amazing, because now I'm realizing, because a big part of my journey as well has been going from, okay, I know I can go out and I can sell and I can make money. Now, how do I replicate that into other people? Because I can literally only go talk to so many people in a day. Even if I'm having my best day, day after day after day, that's still, I would be retarding myself if I kept doing that. Now it's more of a leadership role while still doing the thing, until I'm at the point where then it's like, okay, I'm in a new position. So that's like real teachability right there. It's like, I have to be okay to accept change, as well as the anxiety that comes with that of like, well, if I'm not the one out there selling, how do I know that we're going to keep selling? It's like, that's just a shitty mindset on my part. And I don't judge myself for it. It's like, okay, how do I just correct it? And it's pretty fucking cool, because you can change really fast with these tools. And now, especially in the past like 2 to 3 weeks, like I've made a ton of progress in that. So yeah.
That's cool. I saw that there was a question our sea god posted. It's a
The
little bit
whole
of it's a little bit of
Canada's-
backtracking. Yeah, backtracking.
Christine, can you discern the
Oh, yeah.
for us?
So we had Margot asking in the chat earlier, just to clarify, can you guys explain the whole Canada's communist dictatorship thing? So maybe it is just not clear for our listeners.
Well,
why.
it's kind of ironic, right? Because I'm judging from her name that she's in Quebec.
Yes.
I'm assuming that'd be like a Chinese person being like, what do you mean China's communist? They're like, dude, you're fucking there. What are you talking about? Right? So it should be
like
pretty
a fish in
obvious.
water. It's like a fish in water. They don't even know they're in water. You know,
But
maybe?
also it's like, are you paying attention?
I actually,
Or is everything just working for you? And so it's like, what are you guys talking about? That'd be like the fucking princess in the castle being like, what do you mean poverty? It's like, well, you're currently the beneficiary. Like there's a protest that just happened in Ottawa, the capital, and they just sent the local and federal police and they arrested 47 people and removed them. A protest where people were not fucking doing anything massively violent, nothing. In Canada, I thought you had the right to protest in Canada. I thought it was like a free country and all this stuff. And they said, well, we can't allow people to stand with the Nazi flag. It's like, why not? Isn't that, don't they have a right to protest too? Like here in the States, we have Nazi parades where like the fucking KKK or whoever they are, like go down the street and they have their own parade. And guess what? Good job. You had a parade. There's gay pride parades too. Who gives a shit? Like go have your parade, do whatever the fuck you want. Like they're not hurting anybody. I'm not saying it's a good idea to have these fucking protest parades, but I'm saying I thought that in a free country, you were supposed to be allowed to do stuff like that. So you're not allowed to go and protest and say you don't agree with something. I mean, clearly protesting is retarded. That's what we've been saying. But it should wake you up to the fact like that you don't live in the country you think you do. They're now freezing assets. They're blocking people's financial transactions. I mean, isn't that what you would expect to happen in China?
yeah,
In a communist country, where if you say something against what the government is saying, that they come in, they start arresting people, they start freezing your bank accounts, they start throwing you in jail. That's what's happened, right? And if you're like, yeah, but on the news, it's not saying that. If you're watching the CBC, you're watching the fucking Communist Party propaganda. Like, how do you not understand that? Well, no, I don't watch CBC. I watch CNN. It's like, what's the difference? You know, it's funny. I was thinking about this earlier today. Somebody's like, yeah, but CNN, like, what are you talking about? Like, I get my news from there. Like, I trust them when they say blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that'd be like saying like, yeah, but Nike told me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it'd be like literally like, yeah, but Nike told me that the protesters are violent. So like, it's a company. What the fuck you think? Like,
Yeah, I think people literally don't realize that. Like, they don't even have that fucking.
They have been
cognition.
brainwashed to think that it's like the media is something that is neutral because they say they are. They're literally it's just same thing as Disney propagandizing everybody that everything is about magic and happiness and all this stuff.
Yeah.
When it's literally just a company who's got a product, who's branded it a certain way, no different than Nike. Like everyone knows when you put on Nike shoes, you don't play like Michael Jordan. You just
My
feel
mind,
good because you've associated this image with certain things, and you feel really like, all hyped up
Right.
about how you look and everything. And it's not going to change anything about your athletic ability. Just doing it is not going to just do anything other than buy the product.
To this point, they discovered in the 1950s, I think it was, David Ogilvy, who a lot of people don't know who that is, but one of the like most prominent salespeople in our history, in modern history. He was a marketer. He's the guy that they what's that show, Mad Men? They made that show after him and his company, right? But what he discovered was people can't tell the difference between a written article and an advertisement that's made to look like an article.
Yeah.
And that's been going on for the last 60, 70 years. They realized this 70 years ago. You don't think they're taking advantage of that shit?
Like, that's all CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. It's just all advertisement.
It's super
the news
blatant
program
now.
itself is an advertisement.
So
Yes.
there's just confusion between like, okay, what you're describing, it sounds like totalitarianism. How did I say that word?
Totalitarianism.
Totalitarianism, and then but why the word, using the word communism? Like, how are we differentiating the two?
What's the difference?
You're saying it's the same.
Is there a difference?
I don't know. I'm asking for clarification.
Yes,
because that's what
there's
the
not.
comments are asking.
Right, but when we say communist dictatorship, what is communism? They don't know.
Right.
Right. So what communists claim it is versus what communism actually is, it doesn't really fucking matter.
So in this context, it's like interchangeable.
Essentially.
Okay.
Right. It doesn't really matter whether it's per se communism. It's irrelevant. The point is, it's totalitarianism. It's authoritarianism. It's fascism. I mean, that's probably a better way of saying it. It doesn't really matter. Right.
At the end of the day, from the context of seeing it as a government top-down approach, where it's the government totalitarianism clamping down on everything, it's actually a reflection of the people. So it's either way you spin it, the fundamental thinking of communism being by the people kind of thing, that's what we already have in place. It's just not being administered by the people. It's being administered by a government. But it's all based off public opinion. Like, the real problem is that the average person in Canada is like, yeah, get those truckers. Like, I can't believe that these people would try to protest this shit. This is crazy. That's what the average Canadian is thinking. That's why it's free pass to clamp down and freeze people. Because you read the article about how, the person listening to this podcast, reads the article about how, CBC or whoever is, or CBC wrote the article about how the Emergencies Act they've expanded their powers to be able to clamp down on assets and end the GoFundMe for the truckers and all that stuff, where it's like, you're reading the article and it's like, oh yeah, people associated with the protest, they are losing access to their credit cards. They are losing access to put money into their bank accounts and flow money out of their bank accounts. And you're thinking, wait, how are they going to pay for their food? Like, how are they going to live? Yeah, that's what you're thinking. But the average person, the average Canadian, because that's the only reason why they're doing this, is based off public opinion. So yes, it's a totalitarian approach, but it's based in communism because it's the community who is choosing this.
Yeah.
It's both. This is why it's interchangeable, is because it's the average person saying, fuck yeah, good. They should be. I would say kill them, but that's too crazy. Like, let's just freeze all their assets. This is what those two kids were saying on that Quebec talk show.
Man, that's a
it's
great point. Was that before the protesting happened?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
yeah,
like right
before
around the
it
same
was.
time. But
Isn't that fascinating? Yeah, because
So
they were
just
like,
so
we should put them in
anybody who
jail,
didn't-
take away all
anybody
their
who didn't
rights.
see that, it was like a little girl, must have been no more than 10 years old, 9, 8 maybe, and maybe 11. So maybe no more than 12 years old. And she was saying, I think that we should make it harder and harder and take away more and more things from them until they finally give in and get the vaccination. If
Yeah.
the child is thinking that, and the people on stage are like, yeah, wow, that's so good. Wow. Oh my gosh. That's the average Canadian. The average Canadian is not saying, get that shit off of TV and support those children to not be totally fucked in their mind. Nobody's saying that. The average person is like,
okay.
bravo,
Right.
bravo.
And so if you're hearing this and you're in Canada, the US, because it's coming for the US too, we're not exempt. If you're hearing this and you're not a distributor working to re-educate these people to actually have common sense, or doing a clubhouse consistently every other week or every week, depending how many people you can get. If you're not doing those two things, you're complicit with it. You're in agreement with it through tacit approval. Period. What else are you doing? So
You're part of the community of people who there's the 70% who are like, yeah, like take this protest out. And there's the 29% of people who are just not saying anything, even though they disagree. Or maybe it's 50%. Who knows? You're not saying anything. Therefore, yes, you are
Right.
complicit. You're tacitly approving.
So here's what you can say to these people is come to my fucking clubhouse. It's February 27th or whatever at 5 p.m. Come there, right? Bring your friends, bring some friends, and then talk about this and then influence them to then join and be part of the solution. Like if you don't have a date in your calendar of when the next clubhouse is, if you're not talking to someone to learn how you can make money while re-educating the population, go do that. Do that before you do anything else.
And have this as a question for your clubhouse. Just have it be, bring everybody from the protest and have the question from for your clubhouse be, why is protesting not a solution to the tyranny of the government or whatever the hell kind of buzzword? And let everybody have to think about that. And then you knock it out of the park and educate them, give them the solution, the real solution. Because the government, whether it's totalitarian or not, it's based off of the average individual around you, where you're at in your community, being totally okay with all this bullshit. So the only solution is to give them the tool to support them to see through the bullshit and give them the community and support that are like, hey, you know, this shit is crazy, right? Like if you're thinking that this shit is crazy, you're actually right. It's not best. And people are like, damn, because nobody's talking about this stuff. Yeah. And you know, all the emotional shit that people, you can actually solve that stuff. You know, the relationship that you have, you can actually make that the best relationship. You know, the kids that you don't have to send them to school. They're like, wow, no one's talking about this. Yes. This is why what we're doing is the solution. And why, if you're not a part of it, you're wasting time.
Yeah. Cool. Well, come to the Friday hangout with some wins. Right? Apply this stuff. We don't just say this just to hear ourselves talk. And share this with some friends, right? Add some new people to the self-perfected group this week, and then go out and chat with people. Tell them about your clubhouse.
Hey, and there's a video challenge this week. So if you're listening to the podcast at this point and you haven't done your video challenge yet, do it, baby. It's going to be juicy.
Hey.
It's at the last call, we had 80 people, over 80 people on that call. It doesn't stop, baby. So let's keep it growing.
Yeah.
Like, share,
Sweet.
subscribe, send it one-on-one. Let's go.
Hey.
Right.